Hi everyone, it's Reba. Welcome back to my channel. The concept for today's video was born of this feeling of restlessness I've been having, both internally and externally. Internally, I've been feeling really eager and impatient around creating and finding and solidifying my identity as a creator and nailing down what it is that I make. And apart from me, it feels like my environment is also in this energy of restlessness. Here in New York, we are at the end of March, we're on the cusp of spring, and it still feels like winter's not going to end. Every other day here, the weather can't seem to decide what season it's in, and it can be very confusing and, restless. This will have been my second New York winter, and what I learned from last year is that although winters here can be really long and dark and dreary, it just makes spring that much more wonderful and refreshing when it finally arrives. But I also learned that you do have to wait and be very patient because of how long and how endless the winter feels. So I'm here, I am waiting, I am trying to be patient with the weather and with the season change, and all of that is overlapping with this impatience I am feeling about myself and my own new personal season of recommitting to this channel this year after a hiatus and wanting to feel it grow and wanting to see myself improve quickly and fast. And I'm learning in real time how to be patient with myself and with this weather. All of this is causing me to reflect on what it feels like to move out of this transitionary, impatient area and into the next season and into newness. When we finally settled into spring last year and it didn't feel like a transitionary period, it was so refreshing and energizing. Suddenly, New York became the most romantic city in the world, and I was falling back in love with it, and I was also starting to reconnect with my creative self and fall back in love with that part of me as well. And one of the things I did to love my creative self was take myself on an artist date. I scheduled a day near the end of April to take myself to the Met for a few hours. And then finally the day came and I got ready and I put on my favorite dress and I went to the Met. I spent several hours wandering around, looking at paintings, and then I went up to the rooftop and spent some time up there, and that was just lovely, feeling the sun on my skin and looking out across Central Park, which was now all green again. In remembering this, I decided I needed to not wait any longer for spring to fully arrive before taking myself out on another artist date. I should just start doing those now. Yes, part of what made that day so great was the lovely spring weather, but it was also this feeling of my creative self coming out of hibernation. I was feeling inspired and motivated. I was looking at art intentionally and thoughtfully. I wasn't scrolling on my phone looking at Instagram or Pinterest. It was a special kind of self-care meant for my creative part. Which brings me to last week. Pending any warm spring weather, I decided to take myself on an artist date. I needed to buy a new notebook for a writing project I'm currently working on, and I decided to turn what could be an errand into a little artist date for myself. And it was so nurturing and motivating that I wanted to talk about it here in this video in the hopes that I might convince you to take yourself on an artist date. Or if you're like me and have fallen off the practice, start it back up again. So what is an artist date? The Artist Date is a creative practice designed and encouraged by Julia Cameron. It's part of the program laid out in her self-help book, The Artist's Way. Julia Cameron defines the Artist Date as a tool of attention and a once-weekly solo expedition to do something that enchants or interests you. Just like a romantic date that you would go on to get to know someone new or nurture an existing relationship, an artist date is about intentionally making time to spend with your creative self. I have not personally read the whole book or completed the full 12-week program that's detailed in it, but it is such a well-known book. I'm sure you've heard of it, and the practices within it are generally recommended by creatives and artists that I know. If you are also not ready to read the full book or embark on the full Artist's Way journey, but want to read Julia Cameron's own words discussing the artist state, I've listed a link to an article below in which she talks about it in a concise way. Something I really liked that she said in the article is, our culture has a strong work ethic, but we have no play ethic. In essence, going on an artist date is a form of play. It shouldn't be serious. It shouldn't be seen as a productivity boosting activity or something with high expectations like learning and perfecting a new skill. She designed this practice so that we pay attention to the part of ourselves that she calls the inner youngster. It's that playful, curious part of ourselves that we often forget about when trying to meet the demands of a capitalist hustle culture, or even just the demands of your own personal expectations for yourself. When we focus too much on producing things, it's easy to forget why we were creating in the first place. Paying attention to yourself in this way is also the reason why it's a solo activity. Going out with another person or a group of people isn't the same because you're focusing on paying attention to the people you're with the activity as backdrop. The solo special time with your inner creative is the magic key to the artist state. In a former workplace, when we were required to attend non-work activities, we called those forced fun. So if it helps you to think of it in that way, go ahead. I think for many of us, it can be hard to imagine making time for just play if you have deadlines or a really difficult work or family schedule. We can get caught up in this idea of whenever I have free or extra time, I need to not waste it. I need to work on this project or work on that thing. But I have found something to be true, and she speaks to this in the article as well, that some of my most creative ideas come when I'm not explicitly working on the thing. When I'm on a walk, cooking, taking a shower, listening to an unrelated podcast or book, watching a movie, something in my brain will connect serendipitously in a way that wouldn't have if I had been focused head down on the project. This is why it helps to step away from a project when you're stuck, why it's important to take breaks, to come up for air. And this is why you need to make time for play. So what are some ideas for an artist date? Julia Cameron recommends her students tune into their childlike ideas of fun. Some of the examples she gives are going to an art supply store, going to the zoo, going to a movie or a play, visiting a botanical garden, or going to a pet store. You know, I'm going to recommend going to a library. A lot of the times when I go to the library to look for books, not to do any work or anything, I'll treat it like a solo date. If you've followed me for a bit, you'll see examples of this in my library vlogs. I take myself out, I go grab a coffee, I hang out at the library and roam the shelves. And I am planning on making more library vlogs this year, so stay tuned. In the spirit of thinking about the activities I enjoyed as a child, I did love going to the library, and I also loved going to the park and to museums. So those are all easy answers for me. Once the weather's warmer, I definitely want to take myself to the park more often, and I have an abundance of museums that I still need to visit here in New York, so I am set. Which reminds me, I want to remind you to check what perks you have included with your library card. I believe a lot of public library systems collaborate with arts and culture programs, so check out what is available to you with your library card, because I'm sure you have access to a lot of other things beyond just what is directly available through your library. If you're in New York, your library card gives you access to the Culture Pass program. You definitely have to take advantage of it. If you go to the Culture Pass website, you can log in with your library card credentials. Just scroll through, see what interests you, and book a free pass. And I would recommend checking it out on the first day of the month. Some places have limited passes and they'll go pretty quickly, so just check at the beginning of the month. Artist dates don't have to cost money. You don't have to live in a big city. See what's available through your library. See what events are happening locally in your area. Go window shopping in a vintage or a thrift store. Check out a farmer's market. Go to a bookstore and try not to buy any books. If you build stuff or create with your hands, maybe go to a hardware store and just wander and see what is there, what weird supplies and materials might spark inspiration. You could even just go to look at paint samples for no project in particular, just to look at colors. If you live near a beach, go collect seashells and rocks. Anything that sounds fun specifically to you, that's your artist date. Like I said, my most recent artist date was taking myself out to buy a notebook. I set aside a few hours one afternoon and went to my favorite stationery store. It's called Yours Truly Brooklyn. It's in Fort Greene, and it's right next to the Greenlight bookstore on Fulton. I did have a goal for this date, which is to pick out the notebook, but the spirit of the artist date is to play and to explore, so I also just spent a lot of time wandering the store to see what brought me delight. I tested some pens, sifted through their sticker collection, and looked at all the greeting cards, and yes, looked at all the notebooks, and finally picked one for me. I got this beautiful blue Usari notebook. It's, the brand is Nakabayashi, made in Japan. It's a 5mm grid, A5 size. I liked the color, I liked the size, and I loved the paperweight and grid paper. You can't go wrong with grid paper. Afterwards, I stopped at the bookstore, but didn't end up buying anything. Just looking. Although I did think about getting this copy of Revenge by Yoko Ogawa because that cover is just so good. Then to end my day, I decided to check out the Center for Fiction because it's just down the street from both of those stores. I'd never been to the Center for Fiction before, and I don't have a membership, so I couldn't go into any of the members only areas, but the cafe and the bookstore are open to anyone. The bookstore had a really great collection, and then if you purchase something from the cafe, you get access to this other room that has a bunch of open tables you can work from. I did end up doing some writing, although, again, the point of this date wasn't to hit a word count or be super productive. But part of the fun of getting a new notebook is opening it up and starting to make marks in it and personalize it. So I had to do that. And that was it. And then I went home. And I had just spent a couple of hours playing and exploring and wandering, and it was great. So I'm going to end this video and invite you once more to plan your own artist date. Let's be intentional about caring for our inner creatives this year. Maybe the season of life that you're in right now, going on a artist date every single week doesn't feel doable, and that's just too overwhelming. But I would encourage you to find a cadence that works for you. I think having time like that every week is really luxury and aspirational. It's probably not realistic for most people. But I think making time for yourself in a cadence that works for you is what's important. It's the intentionality of it. It shouldn't cause disruption to the rest of your life or your relationships. It's a practice for enhancing your creativity, and it shouldn't be a burden. I also think it could be a good idea to think of the artist date as a reward. Maybe you're soon to reach a milestone at work or in a creative project. Why not celebrate by taking yourself on an artist date to release and recharge and build back up some energy for whatever is next? I've said my piece. Please chime in below with your own ideas or encouragement for others. I'd love to hear what other people do when they take themselves out on artist dates, or if you haven't gone on one yet, what kind of ideas sound fun and interesting to you. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.